I should have known better than to cry in public. But there I was, standing outside Marlowe's, a sleek rooftop bar I had no business being at with mascara, probably streaking down my cheeks and my hands shaking around my phone. The text message still glowed on the screen, each word a fresh wound. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. Don't contact me again. 3 years. 3 years of my life. And Derek ended it with a text message while I waited for him at a bar where the cheapest cocktail cost more than my grocery budget. The cool October air bit at my exposed shoulders. I'd bought this dress specifically for tonight, emerald green. Fitted. The kind that made me feel like someone worth showing off. Now it just felt like a costume I couldn't wait to peel off. I wiped at my eyes, probably making the situation worse, and turned toward the street to call a cab. That's when I felt it, the weight of someone's attention, focused and absolute. He stood near the entrance, partially, obscured by the elegant outdoor heaters and clusters of well-dressed patrons. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my rent. But it wasn't the expensive clothes that made my breath catch. It was the way he looked at me. Not with pity, not with curiosity, with something darker, more primal, like he'd just witnessed something he had no intention of forgetting. Our eyes met, and the noise of the city seemed to fade. His face was all sharp angles and controlled intensity, the kind of handsome that came with a warning label. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a jaw that could have been carved from marble. He couldn't have been older than 35, but he carried himself with the authority of someone who'd never been told no in his life. He moved toward me with predatory grace, and every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I stood frozen, watching him approach like I was witnessing something inevitable. When he stopped in front of me, close enough, that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy, with a hint of smoke, he didn't smile. Didn't offer empty pleasantries. He simply asked, in a voice like whiskey and gravel, "Who made you cry?" 4 words. 4 simple words that somehow felt like the most dangerous question anyone had ever asked me. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat, trying to salvage some dignity. "It's nothing. I'm fine." His eyes narrowed slightly, and I realized with a start that they weren't just dark, they were the color of a storm rolling in over the ocean. Turbulent. Consuming. "You're not fine." He stated it as fact, not opinion. "And it's not nothing." "You don't know that," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "I know what I see." He tilted his head slightly, studying me with unsettling focus. "Someone hurt you. Recently. Badly enough that you're standing on a street corner in a dress worth crying in, trying to convince yourself you're not falling apart." The accuracy of his observation should have frightened me. Instead, it cracked something open inside my chest. I stopped myself, shaking my head. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "No." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Not yet." Before I could process that statement, a black SUV pulled up to the curb with the kind of precision that suggested it had been waiting nearby. A man in a dark suit emerged from the driver's side, his posture screaming security detail. "Mr. Vitali," the driver said quietly, his eyes scanning the street with professional paranoia. "We should go." Vitali. The name tickled something in the back of my mind. A news headline I'd scrolled past. A whispered conversation I'd overheard. Nothing concrete, just a feeling that this man was someone important, someone dangerous. "Give me a moment," Vitali said without looking at his driver, his attention still fixed on me with unnerving intensity. The driver hesitated, clearly unhappy, but retreated to the vehicle. "Let me give you a ride," Vitali said, making it sound somewhere between an offer and a command. "I don't accept rides from strangers," I replied, finally finding my voice, especially ones with drivers, and I gestured vaguely at the SUV, whatever that is. Smart. He reached into his jacket, and my heart lurched, but he only pulled out a business card. Heavy cardstock, minimalist design, just a name, Dominic Vitali, and a phone number in elegant script. "But you're still standing here. Which means you're deciding whether the danger of coming with me is worse than the pain of staying." He was right, and I hated that he was right. "I don't need saving," I said, even as my voice wavered. "No," he agreed, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. "You need revenge." The word hung between us like a spark near gasoline. He leaned in slightly, and I caught the full force of his presence, power barely contained, danger wrapped in civility. When he spoke again, his voice was low enough that only I could hear. Give me a name, and I'll make sure whoever made you cry regrets it for the rest of their considerably shortened life. My breath caught. He wasn't joking. There was no humor in those storm-dark eyes, no hint of exaggeration. He meant every word with the casual certainty of someone who'd delivered on such promises before. I should have walked away, should have laughed it off as a dramatic pickup line from a man with too much money and too little sense. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Who are you?" His smile was slow, dangerous, and somehow sad. Someone who keeps his promises. He pressed the business card into my palm, his fingers warm against my cold skin, and stepped back toward the waiting SUV. "When you're ready to tell me his name," Dominic Vitali said over his shoulder, "call me." He disappeared into the vehicle, and within seconds, they were gone, swallowed by the city's glittering chaos. I stood there on the sidewalk, clutching a stranger's business card, my tears drying on my cheeks. I didn't call a cab. I didn't go home. Instead, I pulled out my phone and stared at Derek's final message. Then I looked down at the card in my hand at the name that would change everything. Dominic Vitali. I should have thrown it away. I didn't. I kept the card for 3 days. 3 days of telling myself I'd throw it away. 3 days of carrying it in my purse like a secret, my fingers brushing against it every time I reached for my keys or my phone. 3 days of pretending I hadn't memorized the number within an hour of getting home that night. Dominic Vitali. I'd finally looked him up on the second day, sitting in my cramped studio apartment with my laptop balanced on my knees and a glass of wine I couldn't really afford trembling in my hand. The search results had been sparse. Carefully sparse. The kind of digital footprint that belonged to someone who paid good money to keep their name out of headlines. A few society, page mentions charity galas, real estate acquisitions, a single photograph of him in a tuxedo at some fundraiser, his face half turned away from the camera, as if he'd sensed it and deliberately avoided it. Owner of several import-export companies, ties to old money families in the city. Nothing concrete, nothing provable, nothing that explained why 3 different news sites had scrubbed articles about him, leaving only broken links and cached fragments that hinted at words like investigation and allegations and insufficient evidence. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was curious. An anger the kind that had been simmering since Derek's text message was a dangerous companion to curiosity. On the 4th day I called. It was past midnight. I'd worked a double shift at the hospital where I was a nurse, my feet aching and my scrubs stained with someone else's blood from a trauma case that had gone sideways. I was exhausted, wrung out, and too tired to maintain the careful walls I'd built around my pride. Derek had posted on social media. Him and her Jessica from his office, the one he'd always said was just a colleague. They were at a restaurant I'd suggested for our anniversary. He was wearing the watch I'd saved for months to buy him. My hands were shaking when I pulled out the card. The phone rang twice before a voice answered not Dominic, but someone else. Male, professional, cautious. "Who is this?" My courage nearly failed. "I'm calling for Dominic Vitali. He gave me this number." A pause, heavy with evaluation. "Your name?" Arya Chen." "Hold." The silence stretched long enough that I almost hung up. Then a different voice came through the line, and my entire body reacted to the sound. "Arya." He said my name like he'd been expecting my call. Like he'd been waiting for it. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't use that number. I shouldn't be using it now," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "But you are." I could hear the faint sound of movement, fabric rustling, a door closing. "Tell me why." "I don't know," I admitted, pressing my palm against my forehead. "This is insane. I don't even know you. I should hang up." "You should," he agreed. "But you won't." He was right again, and I hated it. "Where are you?" he asked, his tone shifting to something more focused. "Home." "Why?" "Give me your address." "Absolutely not." Some survival instinct finally kicked in. "I'm not giving a stranger my address in the middle of the night." "Smart girl." There was approval in his voice, warm and unexpected. "Then meet me. There's a cafe on Morrison Street, Angelina's. Do you know it?" I did. It was public, well lit, open 24 hours, safe, relatively speaking. "It's after midnight," I said, grasping for excuses. "I know what time it is, Arya." My name again. and something about the way he said it made my stomach flip. Are you working tomorrow? Not until evening. Then you have no one excuse. A pause. Unless you're afraid. The challenge in those words was deliberate, calculated to provoke exactly the response it got. I'm not afraid of you, I lied. Good. I could hear the smile in his voice. Then I'll see you in 30 minutes. He hung up before I could argue. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was stupid, reckless, potentially dangerous in ways I couldn't even fully articulate. I went anyway. Angelina's was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few night shift workers and insomniacs scattered across worn vinyl booths. The fluorescent lighting was harsh and unflattering, the smell of burnt coffee and disinfectant sharp in the air. Dominic Vitali looked impossibly out of place. He sat in a corner booth, his back to the wall. I noticed that detail immediately, the way he'd positioned himself to see every entrance and exit. He'd dressed down from the suit, wearing dark jeans and a black Henley that somehow made him look even more dangerous, more real. His eyes found mine the moment I walked through the door, and that same magnetic pull from 4 nights ago slammed into me with renewed force. I slid into the booth across from him, my hands clasped tight around my purse to keep them from shaking. You came, he said simply. I'm an idiot, I replied. No. He leaned forward slightly, his forearms resting on the chipped Formica table. You're angry. There's a difference. A tired-looking waitress appeared, and Dominic ordered coffee for both of us without asking what I wanted. Normally, that kind of presumption would have irritated me. Tonight, I was too exhausted to care. When we were alone again, he studied me with that unnerving intensity I was beginning to recognize. You look tired, he observed. I worked a double shift. Someone coded twice. We almost lost them. I don't know why I offered that detail. I'm a nurse. Something flickered across his face, surprise. Maybe, or reassessment. A nurse, he repeated, like he was filing that information away. You save lives. I try to. I met his gaze. What do you do, Mr. Vitali? Dominic, he corrected. And I solve problems. What kind of problems? His smile was dark, knowing, the permanent kind. The coffee arrived, giving me an excuse to look away, to breathe, to remember why this was a terrible idea. You didn't call me to discuss our careers, Dominic said, his voice dropping lower. So tell me, Arya, what's his name? My hands tightened around the coffee cup. Derek, I whispered. Derek Morrison. Dominic pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Within seconds, it buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening into something cold and lethal. The lawyer, he said, not a question. The one with the girlfriend he didn't mention. The one who just posted them at Marcello's. My breath caught. How did you? I make it my business to know things. He set his phone down, his eyes never leaving mine. Is that what you want, Arya? You want me to make him disappear? The question hung between us, terrible and tempting. I want him to hurt, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. The way he hurt me, I want him to feel. I stopped, horrified at myself, at the venom in my own voice. Dominic reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His touch was warm, steady, anchoring. Then consider it done, he said softly. And in that moment, sitting in a dingy all-night cafe with a man whose last name made news articles disappear, I realized I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. Who are you really? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dominic's thumb traced a slow circle on the back of my hand, the gesture somehow both comforting and possessive. I'm the man who's going to teach you that some prayers, he said, his storm-dark eyes holding mine captive, are answered by the devil. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of our conversation, the weight of Dominic's hand on mine, the absolute certainty in his voice when he'd said, consider it done. What had I just set in motion? My phone buzzed at 7 a.m, startling me out of a half-doze I'd finally fallen into. An unknown number, but somehow I knew who it was before I even opened the message. He won't hurt you again. D. My hands trembled as I typed back. What did you do? The response came immediately. Nothing permanent. Yet. But he knows now that you're under my protection. That's enough. I didn't ask for your protection. You asked for revenge. Protection comes with it. Can't have one without the other. I stared at those words, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. Before I could respond, another message appeared. Have dinner with me tonight. Somewhere private. Let me explain what happens next. I work tonight. What time do you finish? I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was my chance. To end it. To thank him politely and disappear back into my ordinary life. To pretend that night at Marlowe's had never happened. 10 p.m. I'll pick you up. Send me the hospital address. And just like that, I'd agreed to see him again. The shift crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach jumped. Every time I had a spare moment, my mind wandered back to Dominic, the way he'd looked at me across that cafe table, the casual authority with which he'd promised to hurt the man who'd hurt me. My coworker, Melissa, caught me checking my phone for the 100th time during our break. You've been distracted all night, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. New guy? Something like that, I muttered. Something like that? She raised an eyebrow. Either there's a guy or there isn't. There's a guy, I think. Maybe. I don't know what he is. Melissa laughed. Well, that's cryptic. Is he hot? The image of Dominic in that corner booth flashed through my mind, all dark intensity and controlled power. Dangerously so, I admitted. The best ones always are. She nudged my shoulder. Just be careful, okay? You've been through enough with Derek. Derek. I hadn't thought about him in hours, I realized. The constant ache of betrayal that had consumed me for days had faded to background noise, replaced by something far more immediate and consuming. At exactly 10 p.m., I walked out of the hospital's staff entrance and found a different car waiting than the SUV from before. This was a sleek black sedan, expensive but understated, and Dominic himself stood beside it. He'd dressed more formally tonight, charcoal slacks, a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, no tie. The streetlight caught the sharp angles of his face, making him look like something carved from shadow and stone. You came yourself, I said as I approached, suddenly hyper-aware of how I must look exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy bun, still wearing my mug, scrubs under my jacket. I wanted to. He opened the passenger door, his eyes traveling over me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You look tired. Long shift. I slid into the car before I could second-guess myself. Where are we going? My place. He closed my door and rounded to the driver's side. Before you panic, I have a full staff, excellent security, and no intention of doing anything you don't want me to. That's not as reassuring as you think it is, I said as he started the engine. His laugh was low and genuine. Fair enough, but I need privacy for this conversation, and restaurants have too many ears. We drove in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past my window. I should have been nervous. I was getting into a car with a man I barely knew, heading to his home, no one aware of where I was. Every safety rule I'd ever learned was screaming at me, but instead of fear, I felt something else. Anticipation, maybe, or the reckless thrill of someone who'd spent their whole life being careful and was suddenly, catastrophically, tired of it. You're quiet, Dominic observed, his voice cutting through my thoughts. I'm thinking, about how every instinct I have says this is a terrible idea. It probably is. He glanced at me, and something in his expression softened. You can change your mind, Arya. I'll take you home right now if you want. I studied his profile, the strong jaw, the slight tension around his eyes that suggested whatever control he projected cost him something to maintain. What did you do to Derek? I asked instead of answering. His hands tightened almost imperceptibly on the steering wheel. I had a conversation with him, made it clear that any further contact with you would be unwise. That's all? I also may have mentioned certain financial irregularities in his firm's accounts, things that would interest the State Bar Association if they came to light. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. He won't bother you again. You found dirt on him in less than 24 hours? I told you. I make it my business to know things. He turned onto a tree-lined street in a neighborhood where the houses hid behind iron gates and security systems. Everyone has secrets, Arya. The question is who knows them and what they're willing to do with that knowledge. We pulled up to a gate that opened automatically, revealing a long driveway that led to a modern mansion of glass and steel that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Subtle lighting illuminated the grounds, and I caught glimpses of manicured gardens and what might have been a fountain. You live here alone? I asked, unable to keep the disbelief from my voice. Mostly. My housekeeper stays in the guest house. Security rotates shifts. He parked and turned to face me fully. It's too much space for one person. I know that. There was something almost vulnerable in the admission. A crack in the armor. I hadn't expected. He came around and opened my door, offering his hand. I took it, letting him help me out, and suddenly we were standing very close in the dim light of his driveway. Why did you really bring me here? I asked, looking up at him. Dominic's free hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that night, he said quietly, his eyes searching mine. Because when I saw you crying, something in me broke. And because I need you to understand what you've gotten yourself into before this goes any further. What have I gotten myself into? His smile was sad and beautiful and terrifying all at once. Me, Arya. You've gotten yourself into me. He stepped back, breaking the moment, and gestured toward the house. Come inside. Let me show you who I really am. I followed him through the door, my heart pounding, knowing that whatever waited on the other side of this threshold would change everything. Again. The inside of Dominic's home was nothing like I expected. I'd braced myself for ostentation, gold fixtures, marble everything, the kind of wealth that screamed for attention. Instead, the space was minimalist and sophisticated, all clean lines and muted colors. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, making the lights below look like fallen stars. Art hung on the walls, real art, the kind you saw in museums, not reproductions. It was beautiful, and somehow, deeply lonely. Can I get you something to drink? Dominic asked, shrugging out of his jacket and draping it over a chair. Wine? Coffee? Something stronger? Water's fine. I was already feeling off balance. Alcohol seemed like a bad idea. He disappeared into what I assumed was the kitchen, leaving me standing in the expansive living room. I drifted toward the windows, drawn by the view. From this height, the city looked peaceful, orderly. Nothing like the chaos that actually existed at street level. It's a lie, isn't it? Dominic's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him holding 2 glasses of water, his expression unreadable. The view from up here makes everything look clean, safe. Is that why you bought this place? Is that why you bought this place? I accepted the glass he offered. To pretend the world is prettier than it is? No. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I bought it because I needed to see everything coming. The implication in those words settled over me like a chill. What are you so afraid of, Dominic? He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was deciding how much truth to give me. Finally, he turned away from the window. Come with me. There's something I need to show you. He led me through the house, down a hallway lined with more art, to a door that looked heavier than the others. He pressed his thumb to a biometric lock, and it clicked open with a sound that felt ominous. The room beyond was an office, but not like any I'd ever seen. One wall was covered in monitors showing different camera feeds, the gate, the driveway, various rooms in the house, even several external locations I didn't recognize. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface neat, except for a laptop and a single photograph in a silver frame. But it was the other wall that made my breath catch. Maps, photographs, documents connected by red string like something out of a crime thriller. Names I recognized from the news, faces I didn't. And at the center of it all, a family tree that branched out like a deadly spider web. This is my world, Arya. Dominic's voice was quiet behind me. This is what you need to understand before you decide if you want any part of this. I moved closer to the wall, my nursing training kicking in, assessing, cataloging, trying to make sense of the pattern. Several of the photographs had red X's marked through them. Others had question marks. At the top of the family tree was a name, Vitali. I couldn't quite say it. Mafia. He said the word I couldn't. 4th generation. My great-grandfather came over from Sicily in 1923 with nothing but ambition and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. By the time my grandfather took over, we controlled half the import channels on the East Coast. I turned to face him, and he looked different now, harder, more remote, like he'd put on armor I couldn't see. And you? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. What do you control? Everything my father built before he was killed. Shipping, construction, waste management, several legitimate businesses that keep the money clean. He moved to his desk, picking up the framed photograph. And some things that aren't so legitimate. He handed me the photo. A younger Dominic, maybe 20, standing with an older man who shared his features. Both of them were smiling, genuinely happy. It hurt to look at. "My father," he said quietly. "Antonio Vitali, murdered 8 years ago by a rival family trying to move in on our territory. I'm sorry," I whispered, because what else could I say? "Don't be." He took the photo back, setting it down with careful precision. He knew the risks. We all do. I looked back at the wall, at all those connected names and faces. And the exes? Dead. Most by natural causes or old age. Some. He trailed off, and I understood. By you. By my orders, yes. He didn't look away, didn't try to soften it. I don't pull triggers anymore, Arya. I don't get my hands dirty unless absolutely necessary. But I give the orders. I make the decisions. And men die because of those decisions. The water glass felt suddenly heavy in my hand. I set it down on his desk before I could drop it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why bring me here and show me all of this?" Dominic moved closer, and despite everything, despite the wall of evidence of violence and death, despite knowing what he was, I didn't step back. "Because I wanted you from the moment I saw you crying on that street," he said, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. "And I don't want you under false pretenses. If this is going to continue, if you're going to be part of my life in any capacity, you need to know exactly who I am." "A killer," I said, testing the word. "Yes." "A criminal." "Yes." "Someone dangerous. Especially to you." He reached out slowly, giving me time to move away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "Because the people I care about become targets, Arya. Always. And I already care about you more than is wise." My heart hammered against my ribs. I should have been running, should have been calling the police, getting as far from him as possible. Instead I asked, "Who are you at war with?" Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or approval. "The Castellano family. They've been trying to push into my territory for years. They're getting bolder." He gestured to the wall. 3 of my men have disappeared in the last 6 months. Not killed, disappeared. That's worse. Why worse? Because it means they're being turned, interrogated, convinced to betray me. His hand dropped from my face. "There's a war coming, Arya. And it's going to be bloody." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the expensive clothes and controlled demeanor to the man underneath. Someone carrying weight that would crush most people. Someone who'd inherited violence and learned to wield it like a weapon. Someone who, despite everything, had shown me more honesty in 3 days than Derek had in 3 years. "I should go," I said. "Yes," he agreed. "You should." Neither of us moved. Dominic, the sound of his phone ringing cut me off. He glanced at the screen, and his entire expression changed, shifting into something cold and lethal. "I have to take this," he answered, his voice clipped. "What?" I watched his face as he listened, watched the muscle in his jaw tick, watched his free hand curl into a fist. "When?" A pause. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before in his eyes. Fear. "What happened?" I asked. "They found one of my missing men." His voice was flat, emotionless. "What's left of him, anyway?" "I need to take you home." Dominic was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his phone, the gun I suddenly noticed in a drawer he pulled open. "Now, wait." I followed him out of the office, my mind still processing what he'd said. "What do you mean? What's left of him?" He didn't answer, just kept walking with long, purposeful strides. I had to nearly jog to keep up. "Dominic, talk to me." He stopped so abruptly I almost collided with him. When he turned, the man who'd touched my face with such gentleness minutes ago was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, someone capable of exactly what that wall of photographs implied. They tortured him, Arya. For information. For sport. I don't know yet. His voice was clipped, controlled, and then they dumped what was left where my people would find him. As a message. My nurse's brain immediately went clinical, detached. Is he alive? Barely. Something flickered across his face. He might not make it to the hospital. Then don't take him to a hospital. The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. Bring him here. Dominic stared at me like I'd lost my mind. What? I'm a trauma nurse. I've worked gunshot wounds, stabbings, you name it. My hands were already trembling with adrenaline, but my voice stayed steady. If he's barely alive, the ambulance ride and ER wait could kill him. And if he's been tortured, there will be questions. Police. Reports. You don't know what you're offering. I know exactly what I'm offering. I met his gaze. You have medical supplies here? Some. Probably not enough. Then send someone to get more. I'll give you a list. I pulled out my phone. How far away is he? Dominic studied me for a long moment, and I could see him weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, he pulled out his own phone. Bring him to the house, he said into it. Yes, here. I'll explain later. 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at me. Are you sure about this? No. I wasn't sure about anything anymore. But that man, whoever he was dying, and I'd taken an oath. I'm sure. Now show me where I can set up. 23 minutes later, I was standing in what Dominic called the medical room. Apparently having a private trauma suite in your home was just another Tuesday for organized crime bosses, wearing borrowed surgical scrubs and trying not to think too hard about what I was doing. The room was better equipped than I'd expected. Hospital bed, monitors, IV stands, even a crash cart. Someone had been prepared for emergencies. My father installed this, Dominic said quietly from the doorway, watching me inventory supplies. He didn't trust hospitals either. Smart man. I pulled on gloves. The supplies I asked for? On their way. Marco's hitting 3 different pharmacies so it doesn't raise flags. I nodded, checking the defibrillator charge. My hands were steady now, my mind shifting into the focused calm that came with crisis. This I knew. This I could control. The sound of vehicles outside made Dominic's posture shift. He touched something in his ear, a comm device I hadn't noticed before. They're here, he said. Arya, last chance to walk away from this. Just bring him in. The man they carried in was barely conscious, his face swollen beyond recognition, his body a roadmap of systematic violence, burns, cuts, signs of beating that made my stomach turn even with years of ER experience. But he was breathing, and where there was breath, there was a chance. On the bed, I ordered. And to their credit, Dominic's men moved fast, careful despite their size and evident distress. One of them younger, maybe, mid-20s, had tears on his face. That's enough, Dominic said quietly. Everyone out except Luca. Arya will need an extra set of hands. The crying young man stayed. The others filed out, and I heard Dominic's voice in the hallway, low and dangerous, promising things that made my blood run cold. But I couldn't think about that now. Luca, is it? I said to the young man. I need you to focus. Can you do that? He wiped his face, nodded. Tell me what to do. For the next 2 hours I worked. IV lines, fluids, cleaning wounds, stitching what could be stitched, monitoring vitals that dipped and spiked with alarming frequency. Luca followed orders perfectly, his hands steady despite the tears that kept falling. You know him well? I asked during a quiet moment, checking the man's pupils. He's my brother, Luca's voice cracked. Marco. He's my older brother. My hands stilled. I'm sorry. Will he make it? I wanted to lie, to offer comfort. But he deserved honesty. I don't know. He's lost a lot of blood. There might be internal injuries I can't see. The next few hours are critical. I met his eyes. But he's fighting, and that counts for something. The door opened and Dominic entered, his face unreadable. He looked at his man Marco and something passed over his expression. Guilt, maybe, or rage carefully controlled. How bad? He asked. Bad. He needs a hospital, Dominic. Real imaging, maybe surgery. No hospitals. His voice was absolute. The Castellanos have people everywhere. He goes to a hospital. He's dead within hours. He might die anyway. Then he dies here, with family. Dominic moved closer to the bed. But at least he dies safe. I wanted to argue, but I understood. In his world, hospitals were just another battlefield. I've done what I can, I said quietly. Now we wait. Dominic looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. something that made my breath catch despite the blood on my replace, gloves and the dying man between us. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I did." I started cleaning up, needing something to do with my hands. "I'm a nurse. It's what I do." "No." He caught my wrist gently, stopping me. "Most nurses would have run, would have called the police, would have wanted nothing to do with this." His thumb brushed over my pulse point. "But you stayed. You helped." "Why?" I didn't have a good answer. Or maybe I did, and I wasn't ready to admit it. "Because you asked me to see who you really are," I said finally. "And I needed to see who I really am, too." Before Dominic could respond, Marco's monitor started alarming. His vitals were dropping, his breathing becoming labored. "Luca, call whoever's bringing those supplies and tell them to hurry," I snapped, moving back to the bed. "Dominic, I need you to." The lights went out, all of them, plunging us into complete darkness except for the dim glow of battery-powered monitors. Dominic's voice came through, the black, deadly calm. "Stay exactly where you are. Both of you." I heard the distinctive sound of a gun being cocked. "They're here," he said. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stood frozen in the darkness, my hands still on Marco's chest where I'd been checking his breathing. The monitors cast an eerie blue glow across his battered face, but beyond that small circle of light, everything was black. "Arya." Dominic's voice was barely a whisper, but the command in it was absolute. "Get on the floor. Now." I dropped, my knees hitting the cold tile. Luca was already down. I could hear his panicked breathing somewhere to my left. "The backup generator should have kicked in," Luca hissed. "It always kicks in, which means someone disabled it." Dominic moved through the darkness with certainty, and I heard him doing something near the door. They've been planning this. The sound of gunfire erupted somewhere in the house, sharp cracks that made me flinch. More followed, a staccato, a rhythm that spoke of multiple shooters. I'd heard gunshots before in the ER, seen what bullets did to human bodies, but hearing them here, in this house, with nowhere to run, that was different. "How many men do you have here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "4 inside, 6 more in the grounds." Another burst of gunfire, closer now. "Not enough." The reality of what he was saying hit me. We were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. "There's a panic room," Dominic said. "Behind the bookshelf in my office. You and Luca get Marco there." "I can't move him," I interrupted. "Not without killing him. His vitals are barely stable as it is. Then you and Luca go. I'll hold them." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "I'm not leaving a patient, and I'm not leaving you." Even in the darkness, I felt his gaze on me. "Arya." I said no. The gunfire stopped abruptly, leaving a silence that was somehow worse. In that quiet, I heard footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with purpose through the house. Dominic moved to the door, pressing his back against the wall beside it. In the monitor's glow, I saw him check his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Luca," he said quietly, "there's a gun in the bottom drawer of the medical cabinet. Get it. Know how to use it?" "Yes, sir." "Good. You protect them. No matter what happens to me, you keep Arya and your brother safe. Understood?" "Dominic," I started. "Understood?" he repeated, harder. "Yes, sir," Luca whispered. The footsteps were in the hallway now. I could hear voices, low and cautious. Someone laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. Then Dominic's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and even in the dim light, I saw his expression change. "They have cameras in here," he said, his voice deadly calm. "They're watching us right now." The full horror of that statement sank in. They knew exactly where we were, knew we were trapped. This wasn't a raid, it was an execution. "The windows," I said suddenly. We bulletproof. And we're on the 2nd floor. Dominic's mind was working. I could see it. "Luca, when I give the signal, you kill the monitors. All of them. But Marco, we'll die in the dark or die when they come through that door. Choose." Luca moved to the machines, his hand hovering over the power switches. Dominic looked at me, and in that moment, I saw past the crime boss, past the killer, to something raw underneath. "I'm sorry I brought you into this." "I walked in with my eyes open," I said, and meant it. He smiled, sad and beautiful. "Not open enough." The door handle started to turn. "Now," Dominic said. Luca killed the monitors, plunging us into absolute darkness. The door burst open, muzzle flash lighting up the room in strobe-like bursts. I heard Dominic return fire, heard someone scream, heard a body hit the floor, then his voice, sharp with command. "Luca, the bed, tip it." I understood immediately. We used Marco's hospital bed as a shield, Luca and I tipping it onto its side between us and the door. It wouldn't stop bullets, but it might slow them down. More gunfire, more screams. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, making my eyes water. I pressed myself against the overturned bed, feeling Marco's weight shift against me, praying he was still alive, that I hadn't killed him by moving him. Then, silence again. "Dom?" A voice called from the hallway. Younger, cocky. "We know you're in there. We know you've got the girl and the dying rat." I felt Dominic tense beside me. "Here's the deal," the voice continued. "You give us the girl, we let you and your people walk. She's the one the old man wants anyway." My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. Dominic's hand found mine in the darkness, gripping tight. "Don't listen to him." "He didn't tell you?" The voice laughed. "Your girl isn't as innocent as she looks, Dom. Her father owes the Castellano family a very big debt. Medical malpractice settlement he can't pay. We were going to collect until you put your mark on her." The world tilted. My father. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. Not since he'd stolen money from me to cover his gambling debts. I'd cut him off completely, changed my number, moved apartments. "That's not possible," I said, but my voice shook. $3 million, the voice said. "That's what Daddy Chen owes us. And you, sweetheart, are collateral. Has been since the day you were born. Family debts pass down the line, that's how this works." "Arya." Dominic's voice was low, urgent. "Whatever he's saying, it doesn't matter. I won't let them touch you." But it did matter, because suddenly everything made sense why Dominic had noticed me that night, why he'd been so insistent about protecting me, why he'd shown me his world so quickly. He'd known. "You knew," I said, pulling my hand from his. "You knew about my father's debt." His silence was answer enough. "Did you?" the voice called. "Did you tell her you've been tracking her for 3 months, Dom? That you knew exactly who she was before you ever approached her?" My stomach dropped. "Dominic." "Arya, I can explain." "Did you know?" I asked again, my voice breaking. The pause before he answered told me everything. "Yes," he said quietly. "I knew." The betrayal hit harder than any bullet could have. I'd thought, God, I'd been so stupid. I'd thought this was real, that his interest in me was genuine, that for once, someone had seen me, just me, and wanted me anyway, but it had all been a lie. "Time's up, Dom," the voice called. "Send her out or we come in. And trust me, you don't want us coming in." Dominic stood, and even though I couldn't see him, I felt his decision forming. "You want her?" he called back. "Come and take her." Then, to me, so quietly I almost didn't hear. "I know you hate me right now, but I meant what I said. I won't let them touch you." The shooting started again, and this time, it didn't stop. The world became nothing but gunfire and darkness. I pressed myself against the overturned bed, my hands over my ears, my body shaking with each explosion of sound. Marco's weight was heavy against my side. I couldn't tell if he was still breathing, couldn't hear anything over the chaos. Luca was returning fire beside me, his shots careful and measured. Dominic had moved somewhere to the right, using the doorframe as cover. I could track his position by the muzzle flashes, by the bodies that kept falling in the hallway. He was protecting me. Even now, even after I'd learned the truth, he was putting himself between me and them. I hated that it mattered. Hated that some traitorous part of me still wanted to believe this meant something. "Grenade!" someone shouted. Dominic moved faster than I'd thought possible, diving toward us. His body covered mine as the explosion rocked the room, the pressure wave stealing the air from my lungs. The windows, bulletproof or not, shattered, raining glass down on us like deadly snow. For a moment, everything went silent. My ears rang, my head spun. I couldn't hear, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel Dominic's weight on top of me, his heart hammering against my back. "Are you hurt?" His voice sounded distant, muffled. Arya, are you hurt? I took inventory. Nothing felt broken. Nothing bleeding that I could tell. No, I managed. I'm okay. He rolled off me, and I immediately felt the cold rush in where his warmth had been. The room was partially lit now from fires burning in the hallway, casting everything in an orange, hellish glow. I could see the damage. 3 bodies in the doorway, more in the hall beyond, blood everywhere on the walls, the floor, splattered across what remained of the medical equipment. And Dominic, standing in the center of it all like an avenging angel, blood on his face from a cut above his eyebrow, his white shirt torn and stained. How many more? Luca asked, his voice shaking. Unknown. Dominic reloaded with mechanical precision. But they wouldn't have used a grenade if they weren't getting desperate. We hurt them. They hurt us too, Luca said quietly, and I followed his gaze to Marco. The explosion had thrown the bed, and Marco with it. He lay crumpled against the far wall, his already broken body bent at angles that made my nurse's training scream. I didn't need to check his pulse to know. No, Luca whispered, moving toward his brother. Don't. Dominic's command was gentle but firm. We need to move. Now. More will be coming. I'm not leaving him. He's gone, Luca. Dominic's voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry. But if we stay here, we die too. And Marco wouldn't want that. The sound of vehicles outside multiple engines, getting closer. Reinforcements. The question was whose? Dominic's phone buzzed. He checked it, and relief flooded his features. Mine. My people. We have maybe 2 minutes before the Castellanos regroup. He moved to me, helping me stand. My legs shook, threatening to give out. His arm wrapped around my waist, steadying me. Can you walk? I think so. Everything felt surreal, distant. Shock, probably. I'd seen it in patients countless times. Now I was living it. Luca, with us. Now. We moved through the ruined house, stepping over bodies, through smoke and fire. Dominic's men flooded in through the front 6 of them, heavily armed, forming a protective wall around us. Boss, are you? One started. I'm fine. Status? We got 12 of theirs. Lost Polly and Tommaso. Rest are injured but mobile. The man's eyes landed on me, widened. Is this... Later. Get everyone out. Burn it. Sir? You heard me. Burn the house. Destroy everything. I'm not giving them the satisfaction of taking my home. The finality in his voice was chilling. This place, his father's house, filled with memories and history, he was willing to destroy it all rather than let his enemies have it. We made it to the cars, a convoy of black SUVs, engines running. Dominic pushed me into the back of one, sliding in beside me. Luca climbed in front, his face blank with grief. As we pulled away, I looked back through the rear window. Flames were already licking up the side of the mansion, orange and hungry. Everything that had happened in there, the medical room, the office with its wall of secrets, the moment Dominic had touched my face with such gentleness, all of it turning to ash. Where are we going? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Safe house. One the Castellanos don't know about. Dominic was on his phone, barking orders in Italian, his voice hard and cold. This was the man from the photographs, I realized. The one who gave orders that ended lives. When he finally hung up, silence filled the car, the kind of silence that screamed with everything unsaid. How long? I asked finally. How long have you known about me? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. 3 months. The Castellanos had already marked you as collateral for your father's debt. I intercepted their surveillance. And you what? Decided to get to me first? I decided to protect you. He turned to look at me, and his eyes were haunted. Your father doesn't even know the danger he put you in. The Castellanos don't just collect debts, Arya. They use people, break them. Your father owed money he'd never be able to repay, so they were going to take you instead. Take me how? But I already knew. I'd heard the stories, seen the news reports about women who disappeared. However they wanted. His jaw clenched. I couldn't let that happen. So, you stalked me instead. Manipulated me. Pretended to... My voice broke. That night at Marlowe's wasn't chance, was it? You knew I'd be there. Knew Derek would break up with me. I knew he was going to propose to someone else that night. I had someone send you the invitation to Marlowe's. hoping you'd confront him." He looked away. "I needed a way to approach you, to get close without raising suspicion." The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. Every moment between us, every touch, every word had been calculated, choreographed. "You bastard," I whispered. "Yes." He didn't deny it, didn't try to justify. "I am." "Why tell me the truth now? Why not just keep lying?" He looked at me then, and something in his expression cracked. "Because after tonight, you deserve to know. Because you saved Luca, tried to save Marco. Because you stayed when you should have run." He reached out, then stopped himself. "And because I'm tired of lying to you." "What else?" I demanded. "What else haven't you told me?" His phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" He showed me the screen, a photograph. My apartment building, with flames pouring from the windows, the caption below it in Italian. But I didn't need a translation. "They burned my home too," I said numbly. "They're sending a message." Dominic's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "That nowhere is safe. That everyone I care about is a target. You don't care about me. This is just, don't." The word was sharp, desperate. "Don't say I don't care about you. Everything else might have started as strategy, but what I feel now." He stopped, his hands clenching into fists. "You think I burned down my family home for just anyone?" The car pulled up to a nondescript building in an industrial area. "Safe house," he'd said. It looked like a warehouse. "We need to move," the driver said. Castellano's people could have followed. Dominic got out first, scanning the area with predatory awareness. Then he turned back, offering me his hand. I looked at him at this man who'd lied to me, manipulated me, and then thrown himself on a grenade to protect me. "I don't trust you," I said. "I know. I might never trust you again. I know that too." His hand remained extended. "But right now, I'm all you have. And whether you believe it or not, you're all I have too." I took his hand, because he was right. And God help me, that terrified me more than the bullets had. The safe house was exactly as advertised, functional, stark, and utterly devoid of personality. Concrete floors, bare walls, minimal furniture. A single open space that served as kitchen, living room, and dining area, with a hallway leading to what I assumed were bedrooms. Industrial lighting cast harsh shadows across everything. It looked like exactly what it was, a place you stayed when you were running for your life. Dominic's men swept the building while we waited in the car. When they gave the all clear, he finally let me out, his hand on the small of my back, guiding me inside. Even now, even after everything, his touch made my skin burn. I hated myself for it. "There are clothes in the bedroom on the right," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Bathroom stocked with basics. You should clean up, get some rest." "Rest," I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "My apartment just burned down. Your house is gone. A man died tonight trying to protect me. And you want me to rest?" "Arya, don't." I held up a hand. "Don't say my name like that. Like you care. Like any of this is real." Something flashed across his face, pain, maybe, or anger. What happened tonight was real. Those bullets were real. Marco's death was real. "And your lies?" I shot back. "Were those real too?" "Yes." He stepped closer, and I saw blood still on his collar, a bruise forming along his jaw. "I lied about how we met. I lied about why I approached you, but everything after every moment we spent together that was real. How am I supposed to know the difference?" "Because I'm telling you now." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I could have kept lying, Arya. Could have let you believe it was all fate and coincidence. But I didn't. I chose truth, even knowing you'd hate me for it." "Truth?" I laughed again. "You chose truth because I was about to die, and you wanted to clear your conscience. That's not noble, Dominic. That's selfish." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "Good. I wanted him to hurt the way I hurt." "You're right," he said quietly. "It was selfish. Everything I've done has been selfish. I wanted you, so I manipulated circumstances to get you. I wanted to protect you, so I inserted myself into your life. I wanted..." He stopped, jaw clenching. "I wanted you to look at me the way you did at that cafe, like I was something more than what I am." "And what are you?" I demanded. "Tell me, Dominic. What are you really?" A monster who fell in love with someone too good for him. The words hung between us, raw and devastating. There. Is that what you wanted to hear? My heart stuttered. Don't you dare say that word to me. Why not? Because it's a lie. He moved closer, backing me against the wall. Because you think I'm not capable of it? Or because you're terrified it might be true? I was shaking now. Anger and fear and something else I refused to name all churning inside me. You don't get to love me. Not after what you did. I know. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. I know I don't deserve it. Don't deserve you. But it doesn't change what I feel. Stop. My voice cracked. Just stop. Tell me you feel nothing. His eyes searched mine, desperate and dark. Tell me that every time I touch you, you don't feel it too. That your heart doesn't race when I'm near. That you didn't think about me every second between that cafe and when you called. That doesn't mean anything, I whispered, but it sounded weak, even to my ears. It means everything. His thumb finally made contact, brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. And it terrifies me, Arya. Because everyone I love dies. My father, my mother, Marco tonight. Everyone I try to protect ends up hurt or dead or worse. Then let me go. I forced, the words out. If you really love me, let me disappear. Give me money, a new identity, whatever. Just let me go. His hand dropped, his expression shuddering. Is that what you want? I opened my mouth to say yes. To end this. To save myself. To run as far and as fast as I could from this man and his world, and the way he made me feel. But the word wouldn't come. Because somewhere between that first night and this moment, something had shifted inside me. He'd shown me his darkness, and instead of running, I'd stayed. He'd offered me violence, and I'd accepted it. He'd given me truth, and even bleeding and broken, I wanted more. What did that make me? I don't know, I finally admitted. I don't know what I want anymore. Then stay. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Stay until you figure it out. Let me keep you safe while you decide whether to hate me or what? I challenged. Or forgive me. His voice was barely audible, though I have no right to ask for that either. The sound of footsteps made us both turn. Luca appeared in the doorway, his face still blank with shock and grief. Boss, he said quietly. We have a problem. Dominic's entire demeanor changed, snapping back into the cold, controlled leader. What kind of problem? The Castellanos. They're not backing off. Luca held up his phone, showing a message. They're demanding a meeting. Tomorrow night. You and the girl, or they start targeting your other businesses. Your other people. Let them try, Dominic said coldly. Dom. Luca's voice was gentle but firm. They killed Marco to send a message. They'll kill more. They'll kill everyone until you give them what they want. Then we go to war. We're already at war, and we're losing. Luca looked at me, sympathy in his eyes. I'm sorry, miss, but they want you specifically. Until this debt is settled. How much? I interrupted. How much does my father owe? 3 million, Dominic answered before Luca could. And if I work? If I pay? Some of them back? Even as I said it, I knew how ridiculous it sounded. A nurse's salary against $3 million. It would take you 30 years, Dominic said flatly. And they charge interest. You'd never clear it. Then what? I demanded, frustration bubbling over. What's the solution here? I can't pay. You won't hand me over. So what happens? Dominic and Luca exchanged a look, and I saw something pass between them. A decision being made without words. There is one option, Dominic said slowly. One way to settle the debt and end this. What option? He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw resignation and determination in equal measure. You marry me. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. What? I barely breathed the word. In our world, marriage isn't just ceremony. It's alliance, protection, transfer of debt. He spoke clinically, like he was discussing a business transaction. If you're my wife, your father's debt becomes mine. The Castellanos can't touch you without declaring war on my entire family. It's the one thing they won't risk. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. He stepped closer. One ceremony, Arya. One set of vows, and you're safe. Forever. And trapped, I added. Trapped with you. Yes. He didn't deny it. Trapped with me. I looked at him, this man who'd lied to me, protected me, destroyed his own home for me. This man who claimed to love me and was now proposing marriage as a business solution. This man who somehow, impossibly, I couldn't walk away from. I need time, I said. Time to think. You have until tomorrow night. His phone buzzed with another message. That's when the Castellanos want their answer. You or war. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with an impossible choice and a heart that couldn't decide whether to break or surrender. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the unfamiliar bed in the safe house, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Dominic's men moving through the building, guards rotating shifts, weapons being cleaned, low voices discussing strategy and contingencies, the sound of people preparing for war, all because of me. Because my father had gambled away money he didn't have and signed away a daughter he'd never bothered to protect. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and wandered into the main room. Luca sat at a makeshift table, cleaning a gun with methodical precision. He looked up when I entered, his eyes red-rimmed but dry. Can't sleep either? He asked quietly. How could I? I moved to the window, careful to stay back from the glass. Your brother died tonight because of me. No. Luca's voice was firm. He died because the Castellanos are animals. Don't take that on yourself. But if I hadn't been there, then Dom would be dead. And probably me too. He set down the gun. Marco knew the risks. We all do. It's part of the life. What kind of life is that? I turned to face him. Living every day knowing you might die, that the people you love might die, the only life we know. He shrugged. My father worked for Dom's father. I grew up in this world. Marco too. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And Dominic? Does he want this life? Luca was quiet for a moment, considering. He never had a choice. His father was murdered when Dom was 26. Too young to lead, but he had to anyway. Enemies thought he'd be weak, easy to destroy. A small smile crossed his face. They learned different. He killed them, I said. Not a question. All of them. In 1 year, he eliminated every family that had allied against his father. Brutal, efficient, absolute. Luca met my eyes. But that's not who he is. Not really. That's what he had to become to survive. Then who is he? Someone who carries too much weight alone. Someone who hasn't let himself care about anyone in 8 years because everyone he cared about before died. Luca stood, moving to stand. Beside me. Until you. My chest tightened. He told you that? Didn't have to. I've known Dom since we were kids. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. He paused. I've also never seen him burn down his own house to protect someone. He said it was strategy, denying it to his enemies. Maybe. Luca's smile was sad. Or maybe it was him choosing your life over everything his father built. You tell me which is more likely. Before I could respond, another voice cut through the darkness. You should be resting. Dominic emerged from the hallway, wearing only sleep pants, his chest bare and mapped with scars I'd never seen before. Evidence of a violent life written across his skin. So should you, I countered. I don't sleep much anymore. He dismissed Luca with a nod, and the younger man left us alone. Too many people counting on me to make mistakes. We stood in silence, the space between us charged with everything unsaid. In the dim light, he looked. Different, younger somehow, more vulnerable. Like the man beneath the armor was finally visible. Tell me about them, I said quietly, gesturing to his scars. Tell me who you really are. He looked down at himself, as if seeing the scars for the first time. This one, he touched a long slash across his ribs, was from when I was 19. My father's enemies sent a message. I was too slow to dodge it completely. His finger traced another mark, a circular scar near his shoulder. Bullet. 23 years old. First time I really understood I could die. And this? I stepped closer, my hand hovering over a burn mark on his side. Cigarette burns. When they had my father. His voice went flat. They made me watch before they killed him. Wanted me to know what happens when you show weakness. Dominic. My hand finally made contact with his skin, and he flinched. Don't pity me, he said roughly. I've done worse to others, much worse. I don't pity you. I moved closer, my palm flat against his chest, feeling his heart hammer beneath. I'm trying to understand you. Why? His hand covered mine, holding it against his skin. Why does it matter? Because you're asking me to marry you, to tie my life to yours permanently. I looked up at him, and I need to know if the man who showed me his world in that office is the same one standing here now. He is. Dominic's free hand came up to cut my face. Monster and man, killer and protector. I'm both, Arya. I can't separate them. If you marry me, you get all of it. And if I say no, if I choose to run instead, his thumb stroked my cheekbone, the touch achingly gentle. Then I'll give you money, documents, everything you need to disappear. And I'll hold off the Castellanos as long as I can while you go. They'll kill you. Eventually. He said it so calmly, like he'd already accepted it. But you'll be safe. That's what matters. To you, I whispered. It matters to you. Yes. His forehead dropped to rest against mine. You matter to me, more than this life, more than revenge, more than anything. I should have pulled away, should have kept the distance between us safe and impassable. But instead, I found myself rising on my toes, closing the gap, until our lips were barely a breath apart. This is a terrible idea, I whispered. The worst, he agreed. I still don't trust you. I know. And I might never forgive you for lying. I know that too. His hand slid into my hair. But I'm hoping you'll let me spend the rest of my life trying to earn it back. I kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate and angry, and full of everything we'd been holding back, all the fear and fury and need that had been building between us from that first night. He kissed me back like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me flush against him. I felt every hard line of his body, every scar, every proof of violence survived, and I felt safe. It was insane. He was a killer, a liar, a man who'd manipulated his way into my life. But in his arms, with his heart pounding against mine, I felt safer than I'd ever felt before. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark with desire and something deeper. Arya, yes, I said before he could finish. My answer is yes. You're sure? His hands cupped my face like I was something precious. Once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be mine. In my world, marriage is forever. Then you'd better make sure you deserve me, I said, trying for bravado even as my voice shook. His smile was beautiful and broken. I'll spend every day trying. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. A promise and a claim and a plea all at once. When he lifted me, I wrapped my legs around his waist, and he carried me down the hallway to his room. Tomorrow we face the Castellanos. He murmured against my lips. Tomorrow we go to war. But tonight I'm yours. I finished. And God help me, I meant it. I woke to the feeling of Dominic's fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder, his body warm against mine in the gray light of dawn. Last night had been everything fierce and tender, desperate and controlled. He'd touched me like I was both fragile and unbreakable, like he was memorizing every inch of me in case it was the last time. And I'd given myself to him completely, crossing a line I'd sworn I never would. You're thinking too loud, he murmured against my hair. I'm wondering if I've lost my mind, I admitted. Probably. His arm tightened around my waist. But if you have, at least you're not alone in it. I turned in his arms to face him. In the morning light, he looked different, softer somehow, more human, the hard edges of the crime boss smoothed by sleep and satisfaction. What happens today? I asked. The softness vanished, replaced by cold calculation. We get married. Then we meet the Castellanos and end this. Just like that? Just like that. He sat up, and I mourned the loss of his warmth. I have a priest coming at 10. He's understanding about the circumstances. You mean he's on your payroll? I prefer to think of it as a mutually beneficial relationship. Dominic pulled on his pants, his movements efficient. The ceremony will be quick. No guests except Luca and a few witnesses. Then we prepare for tonight. And what happens tonight? I pulled the sheet around myself, suddenly feeling exposed. He turned to look at me, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. I give them a choice. Accept the marriage and the debt transfer, or go to war. And if they choose war, then I give them what they're asking for. His voice was flat, emotionless. I've been holding back, Arya, trying to find peaceful solutions, trying to avoid bloodshed. But they killed Marco. They burned my home. They threatened you. He moved to the window, staring out at nothing. No more holding back. I got out of bed, wrapping the sheet around myself, and went to stand beside him. How many people will die if there's war? Too many. He didn't look at me. But that's not your burden to carry. That's mine. It became mine the moment I said yes. I touched his arm, felt the tension coiled beneath his skin. We're in this together now. For better or worse. We haven't said those vows yet. I'm saying them now. I turned him to face me. Whatever happens tonight, whatever you have to do, I'm with you. I made my choice. Something cracked in his expression, a wall crumbling. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I managed a small smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed me then, gentle and reverent, like he was sealing a promise more binding than any ceremony could make. A knock on the door interrupted us. Luca's voice came through. Boss, the priest is here. And we got word from the Castellanos. They're moving up the meeting. Dominic's jaw clenched. When? 2 hours. They say if you don't show, they start burning your businesses, starting with the hospital where she works. My stomach dropped. Melissa, Dr. Patterson, all my colleagues who had nothing to do with this nightmare. They wouldn't, I whispered. They would. Dominic was already moving, pulling on clothes with military precision. They're forcing my hand, trying to make me rush, make mistakes. He looked at me. Get dressed. We're doing this now. 20 minutes later, I stood in the safe house's bare main room, wearing a simple white dress that one of Dominic's men had somehow procured. It fit perfectly, which should have comforted me, but instead felt ominous, like they'd been preparing for this eventuality all along. The priest was a small, nervous man who avoided eye contact and spoke in hurried Latin. Luca stood as witness along with 2 of Dominic's other men, all of them armed and alert despite the religious ceremony. It was the strangest, most surreal moment of my life. Do. You, Dominic Vitali, take this woman. I do. Dominic cut him off, his eyes never leaving mine. The priest stuttered, then turned to me. And do you, Arya Chen, take this man? I do. My voice was steadier than I felt. The rings, we don't need them. Dominic pulled out a simple gold band anyway, sliding it onto my finger. It fit perfectly, too. You're mine now, in every way that matters. The priest blessed us quickly, clearly eager to leave. As soon as the final words were spoken, he practically ran for the door. And just like that, I was married. To a man I'd known for less than 2 weeks. A man who'd lied to me, manipulated me, and somehow made me fall for him anyway. Mrs. Vitali, Dominic said, testing the name. How does it feel? Ask me tomorrow, I replied. If we survive tonight. His expression hardened. We will. I promise you that. Luca approached, handing Dominic a phone. Castellano's on the line. Dominic took it, his entire demeanor shifting into something cold and lethal. This is Vitali. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watched Dominic's face, watched anger flash across it, then calculation, then something that looked almost like satisfaction. Fine, he said finally. The warehouse on 5th, 1 hour. But understand this, Castellano, I'm bringing my wife. And if one hair on her head is harmed, I will burn your entire family to the ground. Every man, woman, and child. There will be nothing left of your bloodline but ash and memory. He hung up, and the silence that followed was absolute. Dominic, I started. I meant it. He looked at me, and his eyes were terrible. Every word. You're under my protection now, my wife. Anyone who touches you signs their own death warrant. You can't kill children, I said, horrified. I won't have to, because they know I will. He cupped my face. That's how this world works, Arya. The threat of absolute violence prevents the need for it. And if they call your bluff? His smile was cold and certain. It's not a bluff. Luca cleared his throat. Boss, we need to prep. If we're going into Castellano territory, we need full tactical. Do it. Dominic turned back to me. You stay here. With guards. You don't know. I cut him off. You said I'm your wife now. That means I go where you go. Arya, this is too dangerous. You think leaving me here is safer? What if they attack while you're gone? What if this is a diversion? I grabbed his hand. You said I'm yours. That means you're mine too. And I don't let my husband walk into danger alone. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Or fear. You're absolutely certain? I've never been more certain of anything. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. Then stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Promise me. I promise. It was a lie, and we both knew it. But he kissed me anyway, desperate and fierce, like he was trying to imprint himself on my soul. Time to meet my new in-laws, he said with dark humor. Let's hope they're feeling diplomatic. As his men geared up, checking weapons, strapping on body armor, preparing for war, I realized what I'd truly married into. Not just a man, a legacy of violence that stretched back generations. And now, God help me, it was mine too. The warehouse on 5th Street looked abandoned from the outside, broken windows, rusted metal, graffiti covering every surface. But I knew better now. I'd learned that in Dominic's world, nothing was ever as it seemed. We arrived in a convoy of 3 SUVs, Dominic's men positioned strategically around us. He'd insisted I wear a bulletproof vest under my dress, the weight of it a constant reminder of exactly where I was and what was at stake. Remember, Dominic said quietly as we approached the entrance, his hand firm on my lower back. Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And if shooting starts, I run. I know. Another lie. But he needed to believe it. The inside of the warehouse was cavernous and dimly lit. The space cleared except for a single table in the center with 2 chairs on either side. Theatrical, I thought. This was all a performance. The Castellanos were already there. An older man sat at the table, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of face that looked grandfatherly until you saw his eyes. Cold, calculating, dead. Flanking him were at least a dozen men, all armed, all watching us with predatory focus. Vitali. The old man's voice was rough, like gravel scraping concrete. You're late. I was getting married. Dominic's voice was casual, but I felt the tension in his body. You understand, I'm sure. Family obligations. The old man's eyes shifted to me, and I felt physically ill under his gaze. Like something poisonous was touching my skin. This is the Chen girl? He stood slowly. The debt? This is my wife. Dominic's emphasis on the word was absolute. Arya Vitali, which means her father's debt is now mine, and I'm prepared to settle it. Are you? Castellano moved closer, and Dominic's men shifted, hands moving to weapons. Because it seems to me you're trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine. Nothing about human trafficking is rightful, I said before I could stop myself. The warehouse went silent. Dominic's hand tightened on my back, a warning. Castellano's laugh was ugly. She has spirit. I like that. He circled us slowly, a predator assessing prey. But spirit doesn't pay debts, Mrs. Vitali. Your father owes me $3 million, plus interest, plus compensation for my time and trouble. Name your price, Dominic said flatly. $5 million. Cash. By tomorrow. Done. Dominic didn't even hesitate. Wire transfer acceptable? Castellano stopped circling, clearly surprised. You'd pay that much for her? I'd pay anything for her. Dominic's voice was absolute truth, because she's my wife, my family, and family is everything. Something flickered across the old man's face, respect, maybe, or recognition of something familiar. For a moment, I thought we might actually walk out of this alive. Then he smiled, and I knew we were in trouble. There's just one problem, Vitali. Castellano snapped his fingers, and his men raised their weapons. I don't want your money. I want your territory, your shipping lanes, your businesses, everything your father built. That was never on the table, Dominic said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. It is now. Castellano pulled out a gun, aiming it casually at me. You have a choice. Sign over everything to me, or I put a bullet in your pretty new wife's head. Right here. Right now. Dominic's entire body went rigid. I felt his men react behind us. Weapons coming up, safeties clicking off. The warehouse had become a powder keg waiting for a spark. You pull that trigger, Dominic said quietly. And you're dead before her body hits the ground. You know this. Maybe. Castellano's smile widened. But she'll still be dead. And you'll spend the rest of your considerably shortened life knowing you chose pride over her life. Don't. I grabbed Dominic's arm. Don't give him anything. You're worth everything. Dominic's eyes never left Castellano. But he's not getting it. Then, we have a problem. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Castellano's finger tightened on the trigger. Dominic moved, pulling me behind him. Gunfire erupted from somewhere above the catwalks I'd barely noticed. Castellano's men started dropping, precise shots taking them out one by one. Dominic had planned for this, had positioned snipers before we ever walked in. Chaos exploded. Dominic's men returned fire. Bodies fell. The warehouse filled with smoke and sound and the smell of gunpowder. And through it all, Dominic kept his body between me and the bullets, pushing me toward cover behind a concrete pillar. "Stay down!" he shouted over the noise. I pressed myself against the concrete, my heart hammering, watching him move through the violence like a force of nature. Every shot calculated, every movement precise. This was who he really was, not the man who'd held me gently last night, but the killer who'd eliminated every threat to his family in a single year. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was over in less than 3 minutes. When the shooting stopped, Castellano's men were dead or dying. The old man himself was on his knees, blood spreading from a shoulder wound. Dominic's gun pressed against his temple. "I offered you money," Dominic said quietly. "I offered you peace. You chose this. You'll start a war," Castellano gasped. "The other families will see what happens when someone threatens what's mine." Dominic's finger tightened on the trigger. "This is the only warning anyone gets." "Dominic." I stepped out from behind the pillar, my voice surprisingly steady. "Don't." He looked at me, his eyes wild with adrenaline and rage. "He tried to kill you." "I know." I moved closer, carefully, like approaching a dangerous animal. "But you said it yourself, the threat of violence is more powerful than the act. Let him live. Let him tell the other families what happened here, that you destroyed his entire force without losing a single man, that you protected your wife against impossible odds." I reached him, placed my hand over his on the gun. "Let him be your message." For a long moment, Dominic didn't move. Then, slowly, he lowered the weapon. "You have 24 hours to leave the city," he told Castellano. "Take your remaining people and go. If I ever see you again, I'll finish this. Understood?" The old man nodded, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "And the debt?" I asked quietly. "Paid in full," Dominic said, his eyes never leaving Castellano. "In blood and humiliation, we're done here." 3 months later, I stood in a real church wearing a real wedding dress, surrounded by Dominic's family and the few friends I'd managed to keep despite everything. We were already married, legally and binding. But Dominic had insisted on this a proper ceremony, with flowers and music and all the things our first wedding had lacked. "You deserve better than a rushed ceremony in a safe house," he'd said while planning it. "You deserve everything." Now, as I walked down the aisle toward him, I saw the man I'd married in all his contradictions: killer and protector, liar and truth-teller, monster and the only man who'd ever made me feel truly safe. "You came back," he whispered as I reached him, referencing the weeks I'd spent in therapy, processing everything that had happened. "I never left," I replied. "I just needed to find my footing." "And have you found it?" I looked at this man who'd burned down his world to protect me, who'd offered me violence and tenderness in equal measure, who'd given me a choice even when it cost him everything. "Yes," I said. "Right. Here. With you." The priest began the ceremony, the real one this time, with proper vows and witnesses who weren't armed. "Do you, Dominic, take Arya?" "I do. Again. Always. And do you, Arya, take Dominic?" "I do. This time. I meant it without reservation, without fear, for better or worse, in darkness and light, in his world and mine." He kissed me before the priest could finish, and I kissed him back with everything I had, because I'd learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing someone despite their flaws, their darkness, their past. It was about standing beside them when the world was burning and trusting they'd do the same. As we walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, I caught sight of my reflection in a window. Mrs. Arya Vitali, wife of the most dangerous man in the city. And I smiled. Because some prayers, I'd learned, really are answered by the devil. And sometimes, that's exactly who you need.